I had always thought that life could be ordinary, that I could wake up each morning, pour coffee into a chipped mug, and exist quietly without being pulled into chaos or danger. But that was before the first alpha appeared. It happened on a night when the wind carried a strange chill, curling through the streets like it was alive. I was walking home from the library, my coat pulled tight around me, the cobblestones slick with rain. The town was quiet, too quiet. Streetlights flickered as if uncertain whether to stay awake. That's when I felt it, a presence behind me, heavy and deliberate. Like the heartbeat of something that didn't belong in the ordinary world I thought I knew. I stopped. My pulse thumped loud enough I was sure he could hear it. "Hello?" I called into the dark, my voice wavering more than I wanted. There was no reply, only the soft rustle of leaves and then a flash of movement just at the edge of my vision. That's when I first saw him. He wasn't human. Not completely. His eyes glowed faintly, golden in the shadows, sharp and commanding. Tall, broad-shouldered, and radiating a quiet power. He stood perfectly still, watching me. I didn't know what I should feel, fear, awe, or some strange pull deep in my chest that made it impossible to look away. "You shouldn't be out here," Kay said, his voice low, resonating in the empty street. "It's not safe for someone like you." I blinked, confused. Someone like me? My voice sounded small, ridiculous even, in the face of his presence. "Yes," he said simply, stepping closer. Each movement was precise, controlled, yet it carried a weight, a warning. You don't know it yet, but your life, your heart, it's connected to something far bigger than you realize. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to shake my head and tell him he was crazy. But even as I tried, there was a pull I couldn't resist. It wasn't just his gaze, it was something beneath it, an energy that pressed against my chest like an invisible hand. My every instinct screamed danger. My heart, stubborn and naive, fluttered in response. I should go," I stammered, taking a step back. He tilted his head as if amused. "You will want to stay," he said softly. And then, without warning, he was gone. One moment he stood there, commanding the night. The next he vanished into the shadows as if he had never been there at all. I hurried home, my hands shaking, my thoughts racing. What had I just seen? Who or what was he? And why did it feel like he had touched something inside me, something I had long thought buried and impossible to feel again? That night, sleep didn't come. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail of his presence. The way the shadows clung to him, the way his voice carried both warning and warmth, the way his eyes seemed to see through everything I hid deep in the walls. I built around my heart after years of disappointment and loss. I didn't know it then, but that night marked the beginning of a chain of events I couldn't escape. 7 of them would come for me in the months ahead. 7 alphas, each claiming I was theirs by some invisible bond, by some ancient law I didn't understand. Each one testing the walls I had built. Each one forcing me to confront desires I had long denied. But even as I lay awake, a part of me refused to believe it. I had survived heartbreak, betrayal, and life's countless cruelties. I had survived ordinary life, and I could survive this too. I swore then quietly, fiercely, that I would reject them all. No matter how powerful, how dangerous, how tempting. No matter what destiny or whatever force had sent him dared to claim. And yet, deep in my chest, something stirred. A whisper of fear, yes, but also a whisper of longing I could not ignore. Something was coming. I knew it. Something that would challenge everything I believed about myself, about love, and about the boundaries between the ordinary and the impossible. Outside, the wind howled again, shaking the windows of my apartment. I pulled the blanket tighter around me, and for the first time, I felt both dread and anticipation. The world I had thought was safe and predictable had shifted. I didn't know how or why or when the first alpha would appear again, but I knew one thing. My life, my heart, and my future were no longer entirely my own. And so, I waited. The nights that followed were restless. I felt it in my bones. He was near. Not always visible, not always tangible, but present, like a shadow that lingered just beyond sight. I tried to convince myself it was imagination, nerves, or perhaps the echoes of a lonely heart. Yet every instinct screamed otherwise. It was a week later, under a moonlit sky silvered with clouds, that I first saw him again. I had been walking along the river path trying to clear my mind, when a rustling sound made me pause. My heart jumped. The wind shifted. And there he was, standing at the edge of the mist, his eyes glowing like amber lanterns in the fog. "You shouldn't be here," said, his voice steady, commanding, yet calm. Not a threat. Not quite a warning, more like a reminder of something I wasn't ready to face. I clenched my hands in the pockets of my coat. I can handle myself," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. He smiled faintly, and it wasn't a cruel smile. It was knowing, almost tender. "Can you?" he asked. The question carried weight, a meaning I couldn't yet grasp. There are things in this world, things you've never seen. Things that watch and wait and test you. And you have been chosen. Chosen. I echoed, heart hammering. Chosen for what? His gaze softened for a moment, but it didn't lose its intensity. To survive. To understand. Oh? To bond. And to decide whether to embrace the truth or keep running from it. The air between us thickened. I wanted to run. Part of me screamed for safety, but something else rooted me in place, drew me closer. A magnetism I couldn't explain, a connection that didn't obey logic. Every time I looked at him, it felt as if he saw into my very soul, exposing fears I didn't know I had, and truths I had tried to ignore. I swallowed hard. "I don't understand any of this." "You will," he said softly, stepping closer. "And the sooner you do, the safer you'll be." There was danger in his words, undeniable and real. And yet, it wasn't only danger I felt. There was something else, something forbidden that buzzed beneath the tension like electricity. Every instinct in me wanted to resist, to push him away, to retreat into safety. But every instinct also wanted to lean in, to listen, to follow where he might lead. Over the next few days, I found myself noticing small, inexplicable things. Shadows that moved with intention, the hairs on the back of my neck standing as if on warning, fleeting warmth in my chest whenever his presence was near Ivan, when he was nowhere in sight. It was as though the world had subtly shifted, tuned itself to a frequency only we shared. And then he appeared again at my door. I hadn't expected him. I had told myself firmly that I would remain ordinary, cautious, untouched. But the moment I saw him leaning casually against the frame, I felt my resolve falter. "Why do you keep appearing?" I asked, voice barely more than a whisper. "Because," he said, his eyes locking on mine with an intensity that made my heart stutter, "you cannot run from what you are meant to face. And neither can I. Your bond is not a choice. It is inevitable." I shook my head, desperate to deny it. "Bond, you're insane. There's no such thing." "Perhaps," he said, almost teasingly. "Or perhaps you were just afraid to see it, afraid to feel it." I wanted to argue, to insist that I was in control. But the moment he stepped closer and I caught a glimpse of the shadows flickering behind his gaze, I realized how little control I truly had. There was a power in him, ancient and undeniable, that could not be ignored. And it wasn't just power, it was recognition, acceptance, the promise of protection I didn't even know I was desperate for. Days turned into nights. And I began noticing signs that others were aware too. Strange figures lurking in the distance, whispering in the empty streets, watching my apartment windows. The sense of being hunted, of being drawn into something larger than myself, grew stronger. The alphas. I didn't know their motives, but I sensed the tension rising. Something was coming, something inevitable, and I was caught in the middle. And yet, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, I found myself thinking of him constantly. Not just his eyes, his voice, or the aura of danger, but the way he made the night feel alive. The way he seemed to see the real me, the part of me I had long hidden even from myself. I knew I should resist. I knew I should step back, retreat into ordinary life, and pretend none of this had happened. But as I stared into the silvered river that night, watching the mist curl like smoke, I realized with a shiver that I wouldn't. Something was pulling me toward him. Something older than fear, older than logic, and far stronger than any desire to remain safe. The question was no longer whether I wanted to stay away. The question was whether I could dot, and as the wind howled, carrying with it an almost sentient chill, I knew this was only the beginning. I hadn't expected the world to reveal itself so quickly, so completely. One moment, I had thought the alphas were merely mysterious strangers, an impossible fantasy wrapped in danger. The next, I realized how close I was to being swept entirely into their storm. It began with a message. Not a note, not a call, but a voice whispering in my mind. I had felt it before, fleetingly, a nudge of intuition or instinct. But this time, it was clear, urgent, commanding, and impossible to ignore. Meet me at the old stone bridge. Midnight. Alone. Fear prickled across my skin. Yet my curiosity, dangerous, unrelenting, pull one over caution. That night I wrapped my coat tight and moved through the misty streets, each step echoing too loudly in the quiet town. The bridge loomed ahead, old stones slick with rain, shadows dancing like silent watchers. And there he was. Not waiting, exactly, but appearing the instant I reached the midpoint of the bridge. His eyes glowed faintly, amber light reflecting in the mist like molten gold. The wind curled around him, pulling my hair across my face. Yet I could not step back. "You shouldn't have come," he said softly, almost a sigh. Yet his words carried the weight of warning. "I had to," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to understand." He studied me for a long moment, and in that silence I felt exposed. Not just physically, but down to the marrow of my bones. "There are things you need to know," he said finally. "Things that will change everything you think you know about yourself." I felt a chill. Like what? Like the fact that your blood, your very essence, is linked to our world. The world of alphas, of werewolves, of bonds that cannot be broken. I laughed nervously, shaking my head. "That sounds impossible." "It is," he admitted, stepping closer. "And yet it's true. You are marked. In a sense, your presence calls us, even when you try to hide. The other alphas sensed it before you did. That's why they pursued you, why they tried to claim you. Not out of cruelty, but necessity." I swallowed hard, feeling my heart race. "Claim me." He gave a small, wry smile. "Not in the way you fear, but your life is bound to ours whether you choose it or not. And now, someone among us is not who they appeared to be." My stomach dropped. "Someone." "Yes," he said, eyes narrowing. "One of the alphas you thought you rejected, one of them betrayed the code, broke the rules. They would use you for power, not protection. And if you aren't careful, you won't see it coming." Fear hit me like icy water. The world I had been trying to navigate, ordinary, safe, controlled, was gone. Every decision I made now carried weight I had never imagined. Every step I took could draw danger closer. Every glance toward the alphas might expose me to betrayal. I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear into the normalcy I had once clung to. But when I looked at him, the seventh alpha, the one I could not deny, my resolve crumbled. There was something in his gaze, something steady and protective that made the risk feel necessary. Like I had no choice but to trust him, even if it was terrifying. He stepped closer, and I could see the tension in his frame, the restrained power in his movements. "You may have turned away the others," he said softly, "but I will not leave you to face this alone. I've been patient, but you must decide soon. Trust me, or be swept into a storm that you cannot survive." I swallowed hard, trying to steady my racing heart. "I don't know if I can trust anyone right now," I admitted, my voice breaking slightly. "Not after all of this. Not after the others, the danger." "You can trust me," he said firmly, yet gently. Because I am not here to take from you. I am here to protect you. And there is a bond between us, stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. It will guide you if you let it." I didn't respond. I couldn't. The wind tugged at my coat. The mist curled around our feet, and in that moment, the world seemed suspended between what I feared and what I longed for. I realized with a shiver that my heart had already chosen whether I wanted it to or not. And then a sound shattered the quiet. A shadow moved behind him, swift and deliberate. My pulse jumped. The betrayal was here. Someone had followed me. Someone who wanted to turn the night into a trap. Before I could react, he was at my side, and the amber glow in his eyes flared. The air vibrated with power, a low hum that made my chest ache with both fear and wonder. "Stay close," he commanded. And I obeyed instinctively. The figure stepped into the moonlight, a face I recognized, but twisted with malice. One of the other alphas. My former rejection had not ended their pursuit. It had only fueled it. I felt a cold dread in my veins. The world I had thought I understood ordinary, predictable, was gone. And in its place was a storm of power, danger, and unspoken desire that I could no longer resist. I had a choice to make. Trust him or face the consequences alone. And as the wind howled through the bridge, carrying with it the scent of danger and inevitability, I realized that the night had only just begun. The air was thick with tension. So heavy I felt it pressing against my chest. The alpha who had followed me stepped closer, eyes glinting with menace. And I realized that my earlier fears were only the beginning. This was no longer a warning. It was an attack on the fragile safety I had just begun to feel. "You think you can hide?" He sneered, his voice cold, sharp, cutting through the mist. "You belong to our world whether you accept it or not. And I will take what should have been mine." I froze. The words carried a dark weight, the kind that made your blood run cold. But then, as if sensing my fear, he, the seventh alpha, stepped forward. His presence was like a shield of amber light in the fog, solid, unwavering, and protective. "You will not touch her," he said, voice low and commanding. "I warned you." The tension between them was electric. I could feel the unspoken power vibrating through the bridge, making the stones beneath my feet seem alive. And then, in a sudden, almost invisible motion, the hostile alpha lunged. Instinct took over. I ducked, narrowly avoiding a flash of clawed hands and a surge of energy that made the air sizzle. The seventh alpha moved faster than I could comprehend, intercepting the attack. And the world seemed to shift around, ooze shadows twisted. The mist thickened, and I realized the supernatural laws I had never understood were very real and very dangerous. When the threat finally passed, the other alpha vanished into the darkness, leaving only the distant echo of a growl. I collapsed against the railing, trembling, my heart pounding in my ears. "You are safe," he said, and for the first time, his voice carried more than protection. It carried something fragile, almost tender, like a secret he had been holding back. "I don't understand," I whispered, still shaking. "Why me? Why all of this?" He stepped closer, and I noticed the exhaustion in his stance, the weight of responsibility he bore silently. "Because you are not ordinary. You never were. And because you are mine, though not in the way the others claimed. I do not want to control you. I want to guide you, to protect you, to help you understand who you truly are." The words hit me harder than any blow. Mine, not taken, not force mine. But what did that really mean in a world where danger lurked around every shadow, where bonds were unbreakable and rules were older than memory? I began, but my voice faltered. There was so much I wanted to ask, so much I wanted to understand. And then he said something I didn't expect. "There is a secret you must know. A truth hidden from you for your entire life." My breath caught. What kind of truth? He hesitated, as if measuring the weight of the words before speaking. "You are not just marked by our world. You are part of it. Your bloodline. It carries the ability to shift, to protect, to bond in ways even the strongest alphas cannot ignore. That is why they came for you. That is why I stayed. I felt my knees weaken. My life, as I had understood it, crumbled in an instant. All my careful walls, my quiet existence, my denials, they were meaningless. The world I had thought ordinary had always been extraordinary. And I was more than I had ever imagined. But I whispered, fear and awe colliding in my chest. I don't know if I can. Accept this. I don't know if I can survive it. He reached for my hand, not to claim, not to possess, but to steady me. You can, he said softly, because I will not let you face it alone. You are stronger than you know, and we are stronger together. The words stirred something in me, something I had buried beneath years of caution and fear. The pull between us, the bond that had haunted me since the first night I saw him, grew undeniable. I realized with a sudden and startling clarity that my heart had already chosen. But choosing him also meant choosing danger, chaos, and a life far beyond anything I had imagined before I could respond. A new presence swept over the bridge of Third Alpha. Silent, unseen, moving like smoke in the night. My breath caught in my throat as I realized the battle was far from over. They're coming, said, his voice tense, warning sharp. You must trust me. Whatever happens next, there's no turning back. I looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't want to run. My fear was there, yes, but it was eclipsed by something stronger, something I could not name. A bond that demanded I stay, that demanded I face what was coming with him at my side. The wind howled, the shadows thickened, and I felt the world tilt into chaos. My life, my heart, and my very being were no longer mine alone. And yet, for the first time, I was ready to face it. But as the mist swirled and the new presence drew closer, a chilling thought struck me. What if even he, my protector? My seventh alpha couldn't save me this time. And then, in the stillness, before the storm, the figures stepped into the light. The mist thickened around us, curling like living tendrils along the stone bridge. Every sense I had screamed Dangeran, invisible weight pressed on my chest, my pulse hammering as though trying to escape my ribs. The new alpha had stepped fully into the moonlight now, revealing a figure that was both familiar and terrifying. One of the alphas I had rejected before, but changed, hardened, and ruthless. You don't belong here, he said, voice low but sharp enough to cut through the wind. You were never meant to choose freely. You're a prize, and you will be claimed. My chest tightened. This was it. The confrontation I had been running from, the danger I had tried to avoid now, stood before me, unavoidable, personal. My fear flared, and yet, beneath it, a strange clarity emerged. I wasn't alone. Not anymore. The seventh alpha moved before I could think, stepping between us, his presence blazing like a shield. She is not yours, he said, voice steady, but carrying an undercurrent of power that made the air hum. And if you think I will let you touch her, you are gravely mistaken. The alpha stepped closer, eyes glinting, energy crackling around him. The air between them seemed to vibrate, like the world itself was holding its breath. And then suddenly they lunged. It was chaos, but not the kind of chaos I could run from. I felt the pull of my own hidden power, the bloodline he had revealed thrumming in my veins. For the first time I realized that I could contribute, that I was not helpless, that I could fight for what I cared about. I raised my hands instinctively, calling on something I had never understood I possessed. A force radiated outward, not destructive, but protective, shimmering through the fog. The seventh alpha's eyes widened slightly, and I saw a flicker of pride or relief flash across his features. You're stronger than you know, he said. Keeping the other alpha at bay, I took a step forward. And in that moment, the world narrowed to two truths: the threat before me, and the bond I shared with him. The alpha hissed, frustration and rage intertwining in his every movement, but I no longer trembled. Fear was still there. Yes, sharp and real, but it was tempered by resolve. I would not let anyone take this from me. I would not run. I would stand. A sudden surge of energy from the rival alpha made the bridge shake. Stones trembled beneath our feet. The wind howled, tugging at my hair and clothes, trying to throw me off balance. I felt my chest tighten, the fear nearly overwhelming me. But then he was there, the seventh alpha, placing a steady hand on my shoulder. His presence grounded me, anchored me, reminded me that I wasn't facing this alone. "Trust yourself," he whispered. And I did. Somehow, someway, I reached deeper than I had before. Feeling the bond between us, feeling the heartbeat that matched my own. A wave of warmth spread through me, strong and steady, shielding me against the tension, the danger. The storm of power swirling around the bridge. The rival alpha faltered, as if sensing something he could not counter. His energy flickered, his movements hesitant. And then, with a final guttural growl, he retreated into the shadows, vanishing as if he had never been, there leaving only the echo of danger in his wake. I sank to the bridge, my knees weak, chest heaving. Relief flooded me, but it was mingled with awe. I had faced fear I never thought I could endure. I had felt the depth of danger and survived it. And through it all, I had discovered something even more powerful than the threat, the bond that tied me to him. The alpha who had never forced, never demanded, but had waited and guided me through every shadow. He knelt beside me, amber eyes soft now, but still fierce with protective fire. "You did it," he said simply, but the weight in his tone made me understand how monumental it was. "You faced it. You didn't run." Tears threatened, but I refused them. Instead, I drew a shaky breath, feeling the enormity of what had just happened. Everything had changed. The world I had known ordinary, predictable, was gone. My life, my heart, and my very being had been irrevocably altered. But I have gained something extraordinary. "You're mine," I asked quietly, needing the confirmation. Even though my heart already knew the answer. "In the way that matters," he said, voice tender now. "Not possession, not control, but bond, trust, partnership. I will protect you, guide you, and fight beside you. But you, your choices, your courage have made this ours." I nodded, still breathless, still trembling, but not from fear anymore. From the moment we had first met, from the pull I had tried to deny, to the danger we had faced together, I had come to understand that some bonds were stronger than fear, stronger than danger, and even stronger than destiny itself. But as the wind swirled, carrying whispers from the night, I knew our story was far from over. The rival alpha's retreat was temporary. Others would come. Shadows still lurked, secrets still waited to be revealed. And somewhere beyond the mist, the world of alphas and bloodlines and power remained as unpredictable and dangerous as ever. I looked up at him, and for the first time I didn't feel fear. I felt resolve. I felt connection. I felt something deeper than anything I had known. And then, from the corner of the bridge, a faint movement caught my eye. Another shadow. Another alpha. I swallowed, heart thudding, and realized the climax was over, but the storm had not yet passed. The mist had begun to lift as dawn edged over the horizon, turning the night sky into soft hues of gold and lavender. For the first time in days, I could see the bridge clearly, the stones wet but steady beneath my feet. The air still carried the lingering tension of the battle from the night before, but the danger that had threatened me felt distant, now vanished. Or at least held at bay. He was beside me, as always, watching the horizon with that quiet intensity I had come to trust. For months I had feared him, feared the bond, feared the world that had been revealed to me. But in this moment I realized fear no longer had a place in my heart. Not with him. Not with us. "You're awake," he said softly, ember eyes catching the first light of morning. "I'm awake." I replied, voice calm for the first time in what felt like forever. "And I think I finally understand." He turned to me, curious, yet patient. "Understand what?" "That some things are bigger than fear," I said, my gaze steady. Bigger than the danger, bigger than the shadows, and even bigger than the choices we think we control. Some things are meant to be faced, and some people are meant to be trusted. He smiled, a rare, genuine warmth spreading across his features. You've grown stronger than you realize, he said, voice low. And you've chosen not out of fear, but out of courage. That's why you survived. That's why we survived. I looked out over the river, watching the water catch the colors of dawn, and for the first time, I felt the weight of the last few weeks lift. The rival alpha was gone, retreated perhaps, or finally deterred by the bond we shared. The danger still lingered in the world, but it no longer controlled me. I had faced it. I had survived. And I had done so with him at my side. I turned back to him, my heart swelling with a warmth that was both comforting and fierce. I don't know what comes next, I admitted. The world we live in, it's bigger than I imagined. And I know there will be more challenges, more alphas, more tests. He reached for my hand, steady and firm, yet gentle. There will be, he said, but we'll face them together. You've already proven yourself. You've faced fear, embraced your power, and chosen the bond we share. Nothing can take that from you, not now, not ever. For the first time, I allowed myself to believe it. That bond between Usit was more than protection. It was trust. It was acceptance. It was a connection that had grown through danger and fear, through revelations and choices. And it was unbreakable. I thought of the 7 alphas, the ones who had come before him, the ones I had turned away. Each one had been part of the path that led me here, part of the storm that shaped my courage and sharpened my instincts. Without them, I might never have realized the truth of who I was, or the strength of the bond that awaited me. I never wanted this, I said softly, squeezing his hand. I wanted safety, an ordinary life. But ordinary life isn't for me anymore, and I don't want it. Not if it means turning away from you. He pulled me close, a protective, steady presence. You don't have to. Not anymore. You've earned this life, earned the bond, earned the choice to live freely, strong, capable, and loved. And we will face whatever comes side by side. I leaned against him, finally allowing myself to exhale, to release the tension I hadn't realized I had been carrying. The world was still vast, still unpredictable, but for the first time, I felt anchored, grounded, not by fear, not by power, but by connection. The sun rose fully now, casting light across the river and the bridge. The mist dissolved, revealing the ordinary world once hidden by shadows, and yet I knew it would never feel ordinary again. I had been changed. We had been changed, and we had survived. I looked up at him one last time, letting the words form naturally, without fear. Thank you for trusting me, for waiting, for protecting me, for letting me find the courage I didn't know I had. His amber eyes softened, and he brushed a loose strand of hair from my face. No, thank you. For believing in yourself, for choosing courage over fear, and for letting the bond guide you. That's all it ever asked of you. We stood together on the bridge as the world awakened, the first birds beginning their morning song. And in that quiet, precious moment, I realized that destiny had not forced my heart. It had simply waited for me to recognize the truth I had always known. Some loves, some bonds are inevitable, unyielding, and meant to change everything. And as I held his hand, feeling the warmth, the steady heartbeat against mine, I knew finally that I was home,